Yellow. We got a little time lapse on doing a oil filter housing slash cooler assembly on a 2021 BMW X3. I always say that like as a question because I never fucking remember the years of the cars I work on. But anyways, ripping all the shit off the top right now. Got the wiper cowl out of the way, disconnecting everything off the intake manifold. It's like yank that bitch out. I've done a few of these now on this generation. This is an X3. I've done quite a few on like the 330s for the current generation, and then the previous generation before that. They're all pretty similar. They're a little bit different here and there. This one actually wasn't too bad. I felt like there was more room to get the bolts for the cooler housing. There's 3 of them on the back that are pretty tight to get to, but I got a nice little 1/4 inch extension and swivel setup that I've found works pretty well for these. See, I'm throwing the new one back in there. These are honestly, I don't know, this one paid really well. I feel like the ones I've done on the 330s didn't pay as well, but I was able to make super good time on this. It really wasn't too bad, and honestly I enjoy working on the BMWs. They're not too bad. I know a lot of people say they suck, but I've come to find that BMWs, there's a lot in the way, but they're designed to come apart in a certain way. So there's like a procedure and a series of steps that you take, and if you take that correctly, then things come apart pretty smooth. And I also find that between Audi, Volkswagen, Mercedes, and BMW, I feel like the individual parts of things come apart easier, at least in my experience. And that just goes for newer ones. If we're talking about older stuff, like let's say pre-2013, 2014, man, those things fucking suck. And all the plastic shit's breaking, and it's just a nightmare. And I try to avoid those older ones when I can. But putting the intake manifold back on, there's a couple coolant lines underneath it that are a little tricky to get on there. You kind of have to finesse it in there as you're sliding the intake manifold on. The big thing with these and the previous generation from the current was a plastic coolant line that ran from the reservoir to something underneath the manifold. I believe it snapped onto the block, and they would break off on the connection underneath the intake manifold. And it paid super well, because technically you're supposed to take the intake manifold off, and the book time is for that. But I kind of figured out a way to cheat them, because I was looking at it, I was like, nah, man, I bet I could get this thing out and cheat a little bit. So I would take the bracket for the throttle body off, like take the